hey, is that my good friend Omar and?
Oh, hello, it's my good friend Sarah. How's it going?
It's going great. I love that we can just casually hang like this when we're not recording a podcast.
Yeah, me too. It's a great little off week.
Oh God, he's got a gun, Omar! He's got a gun!
No.
Omar! Omar!
No, wait. Let me close my eyes and vanish us to Riverdale Season 6, the podcast.
Oh, we're safe.
All right.
We're safe within the confines of another episode of our podcast, Riverdale Season 6. The podcast where we rewatch Riverdale Season 6 with guests who've never seen the show. I'm
Yes,
Sarah
that's
Kaplan.
right. And I'm Omar and I am so excited to chat about this week's episode with our guest this week. It is none other than the podcast person himself and overall just general visionary, Stephen Ray Morris, who you might know from SeeJurassicRight and the Step by Step Rewatch podcast. Hello, Stephen.
Hey, Omar. It's so good to see you. Sarah, again, so nice to meet you. Oh, there's a dog in the background.
Oh, yeah. Wow, what a picturesque. I mean, this is not great for audio.
That's Puppable Pickens right there.
And then again, Azzy. Thanks for having me. I now understand why. I haven't had a chance to listen to the show yet. But
no one has. Like, we're recording all these right now.
That's what I thought, and it was
and then we delete them right afterwards.
But then once I watched like 5 seconds of the show, I was like, oh, I understand why they're making a podcast about season 6. This totally tracks.
Yeah.
Now, Stephen, we're about to hop in and chat about this, but you have not seen any episodes of Riverdale before?
No, I texted you. The only thing I know about Riverdale is that they turned Archie Comics into Twilight. And I had only just seen Twilight this year for the first time.
Oh my God.
So had to catch up on that ContraPoints video.
Yes. So I was just totally into the notion of Twilighting anything, because I just feel like the original movie is actually incredibly charming and so much fun and nostalgic for me, I think, because that's how all of our friends looked in high school.
Yes, the first Twilight film.
That's why I watch Riverdale. It's just like, listener, you can't see any of us in the Zoom call, but I just want you to know that like any of us could have been cast in any episode of Riverdale as any character.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And to play the titular Archibald Andrews, I think that would go over to our good friend Azzy, who is the producer of the podcast. Hello, Azzy. How's it going?
Oh my God, it's me, Archie Andrews. What am I doing here? I'm not normally the one to start off with an anecdote, but something did happen to me last night that I do need to talk about.
Oh, okay.
And none of this is a joke. None of this is a joke. Okay. I'm opening the Riverdale Season 6 podcast with not a joke. Mm-hmm. I went to bed late last night.
I'm sorry.
Fell asleep and woke up in a cold sweat around 4 a.m.
Okay.
And realized I had not watched this episode of Riverdale.
Oh no.
Okay.
And so I laid there in bed next to my cat and watched this episode of Riverdale and took notes. And if you told me that was all a dream, I would have to believe you.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. We'll see if your notes align with what I think is a very sensible episode.
Yeah. Very grounded. This one was really like this was kind of a bottle episode.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah.
But just to let you know, Stephen, going forward, from here on out, this entire episode will be one segment that we call Ask Azzy. Mm-hmm. So if you have any questions at all about Riverdale lore, about actors, about, I don't know, like J. Edgar Hoover, then you can just ask Azzy to Google for you, and she will.
I mean, my first question is, I didn't realize that Riverdale is almost like a hellmouth. You know, has Riverdale always been a center for everything, or is that something the show? Because again, I've only seen covers of Archie comics. I've seen people use comics and memes. Is the show just kind of adding a layer of meaning to all of the comics, or is there tons like? Do the characters get powers in the comics at some point? Like,
well, which universe is comics? Our universe is comics?
Oh God, there's actual Archie comics in the Riverdale.
I would say that, to my knowledge, no, but the Archie comics have delved into some supernatural stuff before.
Sure.
Yeah.
Notably, the writer, like lead showrunner of Riverdale, is the one that wrote Afterlife with Archie, the zombie one that got really famous.
Oh yeah.
It's the same world as Sabrina, the Teenage Witch. Yeah. So, but the interesting thing about Riverdale, the TV show, is seasons 1 through 5 involve basically nothing magical happening.
What? Yeah. Nothing. Zero.
Yeah.
Zilch.
Yeah. Sometimes like it's teased where you're like, oh, there's a magic thing happening. Like, for example, the Gargoyle King, which Steven, I'm sure you'd be able to tell us more about, honestly. But then it turns out that the Gargoyle King, of course, is in truth Chick, I believe. Who turns out to actually not be Betty's brother, even though they both have crescent moons when they close their wrists or their hands very tightly.
It turns out that Chick, who we all are led to believe is Betty's brother, is actually the lover of Betty's actual brother, who works in the FBI, and they're sort of a serial killer duo. But that's other seasons. That's not relevant to this season.
No. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's complicated. Long story short, to get us to the superpowers, Veronica Lodge's dad, Hiram, put a bomb under Betty and Archie's bed, and they were making out, which was an act of love, and the bomb was an act of hate, and Cheryl had put a curse on the town, and there was palladium, which is science, and Jughead was writing, which is creation. And that the confluence of all those different energies caused a splinter universe in which magic was real, and now we're suffering a backflow from the Splinterverse into the Prime universe. Does that make sense?
I mean, look, Avengers Endgame is one of the biggest movies of all time.
Yeah,
why wouldn't this type of storytelling be part of everything from now? But it just was, I mean, again, my conception of Archie, or even just Riverdale as a show, again, I said like Twilight, Archie in the with a Twilight aesthetic, but it's like if in the middle of Gilmore Girls there all of a sudden was like a zombie apocalypse, and then like the last season of Gilmore Girls is like them living at a Luke's diner, and like their poor Lorelai's friend gets eaten, and like and we have to keep her chained up as she's like
and
a zombie.
Paris has like laser beam eyes.
Yes, exactly. It just is. It's. I guess I didn't realize how. The fact that like the powers part is like 5 seconds of this entire episode, as far as like it. Again, the show
they had to spend too much time tackling sundown town politics in 1944.
Yes.
Well, and also like the fact that they go through all these superpowers, like we're assembling a team, and then they're like to the library to make sure that this diner gets protected through like governmental like what do you call it, like a heritage site like stuff. That is this camp is my question, I guess, also to you.
Can you define what you mean by that?
Because I feel like there's a difference between camp, like so bad it's good, and then like when you think about camp more historically, where you're sort of embracing the badness, but you're still trying your best.
The artifice that we're celebrating.
Yeah. I guess that would be my difference between like, because I saw Sharknado last year for the first time. I weirdly during LA when that hurricane was supposed to come to LA, which is the plot of Sharknado, is a hurricane comes to LA. But I was like, this is people saying Sharknado is camp. That's wrong because it's cynical. I feel like, right? Is that the difference to me?
Yeah.
I don't know. So is Riverdale camp? Like
Riverdale is camp in that definition. It's not so bad it's good.
Okay.
We haven't spoken to anyone who worked on this show yet. That's a plug, listener. Maybe some actors from the show coming up in future episodes. Maybe someone who directed an episode coming up.
Ooh.
Maybe.
Gotta listen. Gotta watch the Instagram. But
yes,
I am pretty sure the people involved know exactly what they're doing. But I don't think it's done cynically. I do think they love, like the guy who created the show and still show runs it is obsessed with Archie comics. Like this is his life's love and passion. So I don't think they're being cynical about the world. I think they're like embracing the freedom to tell any kind of story they want wherever it takes them, I guess.
Yeah. No, I read an interview with Erin Westbrook, who plays Tabitha, and it seemed like I also think I forgot if I texted you this, Omar, but it was like, oh, this is just a Schoolhouse Rock episode, but sexier.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And like Aaron Westbrook is so good at just saying everything out loud.
Yes.
And like again, again, the video I texted you, Omar, it's like halfway through the episode and the Sundown Town plot is basically over. And you're like, this could be a whole hour-long episode. And they're just like 20 minutes in, boom, done. Oh, there's fine. And, you know, we made sure it outlawed. And you're just like,
well, it could have been Lovecraft Country.
Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I will say, like, you know, and we're going to dive into the nitty gritty. We're going to go beat by beat and just kind of look at the back of the tapestry in a second. But like in a world where so many people found out about Tulsa, Oklahoma through the show Watchmen. Truly, like, it's like, this is an educational method. Like Riverdale taught a lot of people about racism in America, and that's, on one hand, like, there's a lot we should probably talk about as a society. But on the other hand, like, it's like cool. I kind of wish that like every show I kept track of was like, but like, let's touch on like, you remember this historical thing or you don't? Okay, well, you should probably look into it. And these were the right people. These were the people on the right side of history. And then you get to the 90s and it's kind of like, that was all kind of like racist. So we're just going to kind of flash through a lot of it. But it was a moment where I was like watching and I was like, hell yeah, thank you for bringing this up. This is great. You know, in a country where we learn about most of our atrocities through the HBO show Watchmen.
I think that's a really good point. I think it's like, it can be kind of cringe in like a liberal parentheses pejorative way. If you're coming from further left than like your Democrat Party. To watch Tabitha back in 1944 stand up at a town hall meeting and tell a sheriff that like, not only is the assumption that it's the black people committing crimes racist, and I'm like, that has no power here. This sheriff doesn't care if you call him racist.
Do you want to get canceled, sheriff? And he's like, that isn't and like a term I understand.
It's cringe as an adult who is embarrassed by Nancy Pelosi. However, it's a good point to remember that like, this is a wide audience watching this show, and it's a lot of younger people who would never have heard of sundown states. And we don't live in a time of nuance, and it's kind of nice for a show to very clearly tell the viewer, like, no, the guy who wants the sundown laws is maybe literally the devil, and the person who is anti-racist is a time-traveling woman protected by an archangel. Like,
here's the artifact, the Woodgenus, the Spear of
Longinus.
The Spear of Longinus. You know, I mean, like there is that element, Sarah, where it is just like having. I mean, at least they didn't show Martin Luther King be assassinated in this episode, but you're just like. But you're right. There is a certain level of tact that like maybe people are using their platform to just be like, no, here is it all laid out. Even if it, I mean, look, we got an image of the Holy Grail filled with a milkshake. Like, what more
do you want? What do you want? That's why this is the best show ever made.
Wow.
I'm glad after this little intro that I did not dream it all up. This is the thing that happened.
If I and I might need to brush up on my Christian history and or lore, but like if I had time travel powers, I think I would go back in time and at the Last Supper lean down over Jesus's ear and say, by the way, it's Judas who's gonna betray you.
Wow.
And then I would slide over a little Holy Grail milkshake and say, and by the way, this is a milkshake. In Australia, they would call this a thick shake. So hold on. Okay, wait. I now realize I've introduced maybe too many elements to explain to you Jesus of Nazareth.
Okay. Dear Jesus, here's a Holy Grail filled with a milkshake. In Australia, they call it a thick shake. Okay. What else are you going to tell Jesus? You have one more thing you get to tell Jesus.
And I have one more thing.
Yeah.
Shit.
Don't worry, dog. They're gonna make a Beast Wars movie. It won't just be a tease at the end of a Transformers movie. It'll be a full-on Beast Wars movie, dog.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I'm less excited because I heard B-stars.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Look, if you don't like cars, it's Transformers, but animal, and that's why one of the things Omar and I bonded over.
I do prefer animals over cars.
Yes, you know, that was something I feel like even pretty early on, because Omar and I went to college together. It was just like obviously Jurassic Park, but then at some point it was like Beast Wars, and
plus a cheetah can go faster than a motorcycle. Don't look it up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, don't look it up.
Don't look it up.
How a robot cheetah can.
I had planned on coming in with dinosaur questions for you, Steven. And then this episode just did not really present itself with those opportunities.
That's actually an insane thing of you to say, Azzy, because I think this is the perfect episode for a dinosaur expert to be on. And Steven, if you wouldn't mind, let me take us all into a journey into the past.
Maple.
And here we find ourselves in an early scene with Percival Pickens proposing a train being built right through the middle of Riverdale. How'd you feel about that? As someone coming in completely cold, do you have any emotions about this scene?
Well, no, I had, and Azzy, maybe this is more lore questions. It is. I feel like the aesthetic of Riverdale is like the aesthetic of like idealized past, but.
Yeah,
like
it
also,
exists.
it's like, is this mid-century modern steampunk? Like, what is, or is it like, it's like American graffiti steampunk or something. Like, what's going on with the aesthetic and like when it like does this? Because you know the TV had a very like 60s vibe. Like, what's going on with the era of the town and everything? Like, what's going on? What's going on with all that?
It's really just one big anachronism.
Steampunk. I think steampunk's actually a really good touch point for it. It technically takes place modern day.
Whoa.
Yes.
There are like timeline things. Bailey's Comet comes,
of course,
every 70 years, and we know that it came in like the 1890s, and we know it came in the 1960s, or is it every 80 years? Yeah, whatever
60s.
it is. 60 years. Yeah. Anyway, we know it takes place modern day for things like that. Technologigally, it's ambiguous. When they need cell phones, they have cell phones, but otherwise they prefer to avoid them.
Wow.
Jughead does most of his writing on a typewriter, and it's unquestioned, but he does own a laptop. So it's like, the world is what it needs to be.
I feel like this aesthetic is basically just like if everyone lived in an Urban Outfitters universe, you know? It's like Bluetooth speaker, but like but typewriter also.
There was a VHS player underneath the TV. What do we think Pops is playing on VHS? Like Land Before Time 4?
Oh, he has a real soft spot for the Chomper sequels, you know?
Yeah.
I'll say like really the only thing I ever watched on VHS when I was a kid was Bear in the Big Blue House. So, you know.
Honestly, I'm not trying to young shame you here, Azzy. I'm actually shocked you've watched anything on VHS.
I had a VHS player when I was little.
Really?
We used to watch Bear in the Big Blue House on Laserdisc.
I don't know what this is. What is Bear in the Big Blue House?
One of the best shows ever. One of the best shows.
There's a big bear and is there a tiny mouse?
There's a tiny mouse named Tucker.
Are there 6 seasons?
I don't think so.
God, I hope so.
God,
Sarah, you would have no idea the dreams that would come true out of that.
I was more of a Gullah Gullah Island kid, but you know.
I didn't watch anything that wasn't animated.
Okay, so what was your like go-to after school?
4 seasons. There's 4 seasons. It's over for me.
Yeah. My go-to after school show?
Yeah.
As a kid, it was a lot of like DBZ, Yu-Gi-Oh, like anything on Toonami. I'm gonna shout out the main show I need to shout out because it doesn't get enough press. Is Fighting Foodons, which
you've never even heard of that show. Wait, what's it
no
called?
one's heard of it. No one's heard of it, but it's real. I swear it's real.
Only heard of it through Sarah.
Wait,
Fighting
what's it called?
Foodons was one of the many like Pokemon, Digimon knockoff shows, and the conceit of Fighting Foodons is that instead of catching a Pokemon, they're all the trainers are chefs, and then you have a little magic card that you throw in your specialty dish, and it turns it into a fighting monster based on that food item. So
that's amazing.
The main characters, like Pikachu, was fried ricer, and he was just his head was a plate of fried rice on just like a martial arts body, and he fought with a giant spoon. And
fried ricer. Oh my god.
And there was a guy who used Italian food, and he had a spaghetti monster. Okay, and it's like 2002. You get to name a spaghetti monster, anything you want, because no one cares about this show, and you have no oversight. What are you going to name the English dub name of this spaghetti monster?
Like something Tony, some Italian gabagool kind of thing or something.
Tony sauce.
Tony sauce.
Pretty close. The official name of this spaghetti monster was Spaghetti About It.
Spaghetti About It. Spaghetti About It.
Criterion Collection. God. When is this going?
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry this is such a long diversion.
A cursory glance at some of these fighting foodons. I'm looking at what looks to be a hot dog in a Van Helsing costume.
Yeah, that was Hot Dog Hunter.
With a popsicle and a gun?
Yeah. I don't know why you're questioning fighting foodons.
Popsicles if they get hungry.
Yeah.
Since you were a Toonami kid, Sarah, do you recognize this guy?
Omar, you had to.
I don't recognize that guy.
Oh my god, that right there is Megabyte from the show reboot.
Megabyte?
My best friend. He did some bad stuff, so he's not my best friend. But
Omar's been a reboot apologist since he was 20 years old.
I think I never found any shows that were super tech based all that appealing. Like,
this one would definitely not be in your pocket. They live in a computer. They live in the city called Mainframe. They have to at one point some characters get sucked into the internet.
Yeah, I like mech shows don't do it for me. Like, I don't know. I'm more of a magic and martial arts anime.
And food based.
Any Food Wars is my favorite anime of all time. Shokugeki no Soma. I'm gonna have to start a Food Wars podcast. Anyway, we've gotten so diverged.
Let's jump into the episode. Also, this dog is getting into all the toothbrushes again. I'm gonna grab her. I'm gonna put her in the room really quick because she is barking up a storm.
Pickens is such a troublemaker. It's like no matter what time Omar finds himself in, Puppable Pickens is there nibbling on his toothbrushes, trying to pass sundown laws.
It's becoming part of the podcast now, a lovable mascot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's canon.
It's canon.
I mean, look, I got off of Beast because Beast Machines or Beast Wars turned into Beast Machines, where they were like, now it was like, I'm a gorilla, I'm a robot inside of a gorilla, but now the robot parts kind of show how it's like they're mixed, and it was just like a little, and they were just on Cybertron. It was just like, I'm like, no, I liked it when they were running around Earth in the past.
Yeah. And Sarah, if you had to guess what the Beast Wars Transformers, like just their general aesthetic in the original animated series looked like.
Okay. You're gonna go sleep here, okay?
How would you just describe it in your brain?
The Beast Wars aesthetic?
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're saying it was a bad thing when you could start to see robot parts through the gorilla. So that seems to suggest that they just looks like normal animals.
Yes, yeah.
They're normal animals.
Which is insane.
Like Rat Trap is literally a giant 6-foot rat that walks alongside a normal sized cheetah and a normal sized gorilla, and he's got like a New York accent. He was the original Rocket Raccoon. Hey, I'm Red Shrimp.
Oh, really? You really gonna think you're gonna do that to us while we're trying to save the planet?
Yeah. You're trying to save the planet, you say, Omar? Well, boy, have I got a crew of plucky 25-year-olds from upstate New York for you. Because this is another group of kids trying to save the planet. And one of them can read minds. What'd you think of that, Steven? You were finding that out at the same time as Tabitha Tate.
Well, it was that thing. I mean, again, this show is going a million miles an hour, and It is interesting because I did read it. There was I think it was TV Insider that had an interview with Erin Westbrook, and she's like, "I'm literally finding all this out as you guys are."
Yeah,
which I'm just like, that makes sense, and I feel like maybe is the charm of it because you're like, wait, what? And I mean, at this point, it's like, well, there's a lady who's like freezing cold, or like her environment's very cold, and I'm like, is this also a Once Upon a Time crossover? Like, is that like, did Anna get Elsa's powers? Like, are we
no. That's a great guess, but no, I can tell you.
But yeah,
it's actually, she's pyrokinetic, so she has to keep her house cold to suppress her own body heat.
Oh, okay, got it.
The entire house cold.
Let me summarize it for you, and I'm going to borrow a really wonderful summary provided by Tabitha Tate. Okay, so you can read thoughts. Betty can see auras. Archie's invulnerable unless he comes in contact with palladium. Cheryl is a fire starter, and Percival can control people's minds. And Stephen, would you agree that all does make a twisted kind of sense?
I mean, well, yeah. If it's an explosion that is, so I mean, look, I mean. My brain is breaking. I'm like, did this show make me hate all storytelling, or did it make me love storytelling? Do you know what I mean? There's a certain point where you're like, yeah, these are all the we're seeing the very like structure. We're seeing the atoms of like how stories are told, and you're like, well, I mean, you know, it's like it you know, we live in an era where everything has to make sort of logical sense, but it's almost like we're in however you say it, the snake eating its tail,
Ouroboros.
Ouroboros, where it's just like, all right, well, if we're gonna make this make sense, fuck you, we're gonna make it make sense. We're gonna like have it be, you know, there's no backstories were made to have thematic resonance with a character, but now like in the last 20 years, it's like, well, no, every detail of this backstory has to be explained. So why not? I feel like it's like at this point where it's just like, okay, well, we're gonna take that as a challenge and a fun exercise versus like, you know, it's making it more complicated and fun rather than like explaining anything at this point, because it doesn't explain anything. It just makes it more exciting, I guess.
Yeah, it's more clay on the table before we've even started to form the pot. Yeah. Would you say that this is the perfect combination of superpowers to fight racism? Or do you think that maybe they're still missing something, that racism might still kind of be active in Riverdale?
Well, again, it is funny that they explain all these powers, and in my head, I'm like, oh, great, they're going to go fight this guy. And then they're like, no, but first, like, a lesson on how to make a place a historic site. Like, again, there's this and, you know, as far as like the dinosaur questions or that kind of thing, I'm like, you know, Jurassic Park had an edutainment value. There's literally a 10-minute animated film that explains how DNA works and everything. So it's like, great. I love that we just get like a 5-minute interlude about like how historic heritage sites are made and like what you need to do. And I'm like, is there anything in my town that I would love to save? And now I could be like, well, if you find enough evidence. I was just like, wow, this is actually very fun and educational.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. Would it help situate you narratively if I reminded you that this is episode 11 and then informed you that it's 11 out of 22 for this season?
Well, what happened? Why this feels like the first episode again? There's the end of the show is like literally like Tabitha's character has like Ben Affleck, Batman Snyder visions of the future. Yeah, you know, like flying bug people and a dead Wonder Woman and like going on, you know, and or Age of Ultron, you know, where Tony has the vision of all the Avengers. Yeah, like it's like. So I'm like, were the first 10 episodes of this season also normal? And now this is where it turns it up, because you said the explosion happened, at the end of season 5 or something?
Can I tell you what Tabitha does at the end of episode 3 of this season?
Sure. That might help.
Okay.
At the end of episode 3, when she's just signed over the rights to Pop's Chocolate Shop to the literal devil in order to win back the soul of her grandfather, She then is able to poison the devil by making a milkshake infused with the actual tears shed by the Virgin Mary at the crucifixion, which makes him weak enough for them to kick him physically off the premises and then consecrate the Pop's Chocolate Shop with said tears and prevent him from actually making his claim on the restaurant.
And it's important that those tears were actually gifted to her by a character that appears in this episode, the Archangel Raphael.
Yeah.
I'm like numb, fully disassociated.
So maybe let's parse this out a little bit for you, Steven, through this episode. Okay, so like there's a train that's gonna run right through Pops.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have time.
So she's already
time.
But the episode makes it seem like this is her. So she's already confronted this Chris O'Shea.
I'm sorry. I implied that it was this Tabitha who did that. But it was actually the Riverdale Tabitha from the Splinter universe who did that.
Oh my god!
Yeah, and we don't have.
This is a show that's on like national television. That looks beautiful. This is like one of the most beautiful looking CW shows I've ever seen. Like I had a brief 100 period, like, and that show looked really good. But this show takes the first season is like Twin Peaks. With all teens, like all teens, Twin Peaks, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like there was still, and there's like one moment for sure towards the end, which we'll talk about, which is like a very Twin Peaksy choice, but just in terms of the aesthetic, the Americana, the sort of like lingering Pacific Northwest fog in New York.
Yeah.
Did you get that sense as a Twin Peaks nerd?
Well, I actually would say that I'm not a Twin Peaks nerd, but I do appreciate David Lynch. I was more of a Mulholland Drive girly personally. But,
okay, I see.
I recently just got Connie Stevens.
Get behind Mulholland Drive. It's just so confusing.
It is very confusing.
Is it because the blonde hair?
I think what's hard for me about Mulholland Drive is the characters aren't explicitly spelling out all the confusing things that are happening.
True, you're right. If Mulholland Drive was a Riverdale episode, you would have all the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, I leave Mulholland Drive and I'm like, I'm not quite sure what happened. But I leave a Riverdale episode knowing exactly what happened, even if it doesn't make sense.
There's no stone left uncovered.
Yes.
But actually, it's funny. Yeah, I recently found 45 of one of the girl group, girl pop, whatever you want to categorize the category of one of the Every Little Star from Mulholland Drive. Which, if anything, for this episode, you have all the great outfits, you have all the great music, Temptations. This is such a sumptuous show, and I'm is every episode this sumptuous?
Yes.
Yeah. Ugh, this is actually one of the lesser sumptuous episodes. It's a pretty serious episode.
Yeah. It seems I don't want to put words in your mouth here, Steven, but it seems like watching this episode has maybe sort of caused your eyes to start bleeding and maybe your mind is snapping in two.
Okay, we have to talk about this. We have to talk about this.
So in case you haven't seen the episode, Tabitha they want to save Pops, and Jughead and Tabitha are figuring out how to make it a historic site. And then lo and behold, a gentleman walks in, pulls out a gun, pop, goes the weasel.
Whoa,
he pulls the trigger.
Like the cold open of this podcast epised.
Yeah, yes. It's sometimes art imitates life. But the thing is, Tabitha opens her eyes. She is still in Pops, but something has changed.
Yeah,
the time that she's in.
It's 1944.
That's right, folks. That's right. And she is there talking to... Okay, I lost track a little bit in terms of the lineage.
It's her great-grandfather.
That's her great-grandfather, whose name is...
Something Tate.
Was it Titus?
On his name tag.
Yeah, it was Titus or Thaddeus. It was a T name.
Yeah.
Because all your ancestors have the same first names, or vaguely the that's
nomenclature
too. Of talking about childhood, or 90s shows. There's always an episode where characters go back in time and they play their past selves. As far as new, I don't know. It was very exciting that that mainstream television will still do a wacky episode like this, where it's
I do love the energy you're bringing to the podcast today, Steven. I do hope this doesn't take away from this, but they do this every other episode.
Wait, really? Oh
yeah,
my God.
This is not a unique episode in that sense.
No, but but it's funny because it's working on a step-by-step rewatch podcast with two of the stars of the show and everything, and just talking about it's called Keanan and Lakin Give You Deja Vu. But it's like one of those things where it's like you look at sitcom plots or TV show plots from the 90s, you're like, oh, this is the episode where like aliens are implied and we never talk about it again, or like here's the episode where they go back in time and they play different ancestors of themselves, or like here's the episode where somebody's on pills. Like it's cool to see that in a mainstream show being made now, that they still like there's still room for that kind of wackiness. Like here's the fetal demon harvest.
What's interesting about Riverdale is you're totally right. It carries forward all those like plot tropes from 90s sitcoms, but Riverdale is completely serial.
Wow.
Like everything that happens continues to matter.
Whoa.
Yeah, except in the Splinterverse of Riverdale, but even those things will come back. And
so if they did like a Mork and Mindy crossover, like an old 80s or 90s sitcom might do, they would have to be like, anyway, Mork and Mindy are canon, and we do have to like constantly check in with Mork just to see how everything's going.
Yeah, he'll occasionally come to town to fight Archie in a boxing match, and maybe an immortal racist warlock will mind control him into walking in front of traffic.
Yeah, something like that. If you want to see the kids playing themselves, Steven, in another episode, there is the Dream Warriors episode where we do get a flashback during the Griffins and Gargoyles season, where they're all playing themselves, but they succumb to Griffins and Gargoyles, which might be a real magic thing, but it's actually not, and it's actually the work of a drug called Jingle Jangle. So anyhow,
yeah, facepalm. That one.
No,
okay, so we're in 1944.
Yeah, so now we're in a time. So it's a time jump.
It's a time jump, and Tabitha meets Raphael again, but now in the Prime universe, and finds out that he is her guardian angel.
I watched this episode with my roommate and good friend of Steven's as well, Mia Rosella, and it was just a moment where like Tabitha turns into Jughead, and that was the first time that they were like, "What the fuck?"
This is the
first of many in this episode of just Jughead sitting there and Jughead being like, "Yeah, what's up?"
Yeah, the Archangel Raphael has taken the form of Forsyth Pendleton Jones III, Jughead.
That's true. And Stephen, you probably immediately picked up on the fact that Tabitha Tate was chronokinetic, which, as we all know, means that she needs to find a totem or a symbolic item of mythic or religious power in order to control her powers.
At some point, I was just like, stop saying that word chronokinetic like it's not an insane thing to say.
Yeah.
I loved with the totem discussion, and we won't yet get to what the totem is. But
good word.
I love
chronokinetic.
I love that with the totem, it was like, this has to be something of huge significance to you or the world. Yeah. And that really doesn't narrow it down a whole lot. It makes it really, it could be anything.
It's like a needle in a haystack.
So she finds out about a town hall meeting. It's an emergency meeting that she goes to. No one knows who she is because she's not actually from this time, but she is allowed into this small, intimate town hall meeting where the racist sheriff proposes new sundown laws. Were you expecting Riverdale Season 6, Episode 11 to get into sundown laws and the Green Book?
Maple? No.
I mean, by this point, I was just like, anything's possible. And again, the school hard rock nature of it, where I'm just like, and again, there's this TV Insider interview I read with Aaron, who plays Tabitha, where it's like, you're right. Like, if this is an opportunity, to talk about this stuff in an insane way, I guess just, what, go for it. Cause it's like the Green Book is there, and
right.
I at this point, I'm just like, all right, we've already bypassed so many things like so quickly. I'm like, all right, I'm going to just settle in.
Yeah.
Shout out to Fire Chief Artie Andrews back in 1944, though. All the Andrews men have always been perfect allies.
Always an ally.
Mm-hmm.
That is canon.
The A in RSU stands for ally.
Yep. I mean, there was the one time that he did go evil in Riverdale and did try to kill everyone, but I want to be clear, that wasn't problematic. It was just
everyone was coming back to life, and you just wanted to see his dad again.
Yeah.
Fair.
Real lucky. First of all, we do confirm that people in the past do look exactly like their future versions.
As they always do.
They always do.
I mean, again, one of my favorite versions of this is Tremors 3. I wish I had the full title. Something like Return to Perfection. Oh, what is the title? Tremors 3.
Big Tremors 3 shout out.
Yeah,
because Back to Perfection.
Back to Perfection, yes. Where they go back in time and everyone is just a cowboy western version of themselves. And they're shooting graboids with old Colt something. I don't know, guys. But
this is going to shock the listeners, but Tremors 3 is one that I also haven't seen.
Have you seen Tremors 1?
No.
It was called, when it first came out, A New Hope, so maybe that's why it's a little confusing.
I haven't seen that either.
Oh my gosh,
I've only seen Riverdale, and I don't see the need to watch any other media.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Yeah,
most of it. So they Tabitha heads back to Pop's, and then they get some visitors late at night on Christmas Eve, it turns out. Real quick, sorry, we better delete. It is Christmas Eve.
Lol, it's Christmas Eve? 3 question marks.
I texted Omar and I'm like, and it's a Christmas episode? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there will be a continuing theme of I'm just gonna say it, rampant Christianity throughout this whole episode.
Yeah.
Which will be a thing.
Other things are true too in this world. I think Riverdale is a world where all things are true.
Yeah.
It's just like, we just have to keep escalating. Like, this can't just be a time travel thing. This can't just be looking, former thing. It can't just be like every TV trope is like stacked on top of each other.
Do you remember in The Mummy when Benny is going trying to appease to the gods and pulls out every religious possible necklace? That's kind of that's the Rolodex we're working with here.
Yeah,
we're just gonna throw everything at the wall. So there is kind of like a mother, a Virgin Mary, please help us shelter in a way. And listener, if you're like, yeah, but that was before they had baby Jesus. That's the story of Christmas Eve. Yeah, that's correct. So
just
Tony, Bangs, and baby Anthony show up as, of course, past characters.
His name is actually Flynn.
And baby Annie.
Baby Annie. Well, that was very surprising to me.
Startling.
Yeah, but Flynn of Flynn's Arcade fame. And,
I didn't catch Tony's name.
Yeah, and
I know she had one.
Previous Tony go there, and the cops want to get to them. So this kind of brings us. I just want to set the stage here for the showdown. Essentially, there is a very familiar face that we are seeing, which is Percival, as the cop that really wants to enforce the sundown laws
of a different town. I'm not saying that's unrealistic. That shit did happen, but like, Percival Pickens was desperate to commit some freaking hate crimes in 1944.
Really, really wanted to. Got held back and was like, "We'll wait on the warrant. It'll come by in the morning." So they're gonna hold it out. What? Let me throw this to the table really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
What would you, in this situation? What would you do?
What would I do?
Yeah, like now you're in this situation.
What would you do, Steven?
You're protecting a young family. There is a horrible, racist, possibly immortal cop. It's hard to tell because everyone also looks the same to you as you time travel.
No, it's him.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I've got that guardian angel in my corner. Maybe I can just casually convince him to
wait, Steven. Didn't he say he wouldn't intervene?
He can.
Sorry, I interrupted your plan. What were you saying he should do?
That's Christmas Eve.
Just the casual nature. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. But it's Christmas.
I want hipster Raphael to be like, well, actually, technically, Jesus, if we look at the star charts, Jesus was actually born in spring. This Saturnalia was actually the holiday that this is falling near and upon.
That's my kind of archangel.
And actually, Angel, I was there, okay?
Would you qualify revealing your true form in all of its glory and making people's eyes bleed and their minds snap in two? Would you count that as a form of intervention? Or would you say that's a purely passive act?
I mean, look, they didn't have to look that way.
That's true.
They didn't have to look at me. They didn't have to look at this bright glowing light and then like took a photo of my TV where it just says men screaming, you know?
It sounded like, though, Stephen, I apologize. You're not going to understand this reference. And
oh, no.
I assume you haven't read the novel Dracula.
No, but actually my stepmom growing up was related to Bram Stoker.
Oh, well, then she might know that it did sound like these men were maybe ejaculating themselves to death.
Oh, no.
That's what it felt like to me. Was not that it was a
the canonical Bram
they're not
Stoker
screaming
reference.
in terror. Those were pleasure screams.
Oh, of course.
Okay, so this was
It's
the
not
first
pleasure
moment.
if you're not screaming. What?
This is the first moment where I looked at Riverdale and I was like, this is the first time I'm going to call you a coward.
For not showing
Because-
the angel.
Show me biblically accurate Jughead Jones. Please.
Can I
Drive
say,
me insane. Let ichor drain from my eyeballs. Show me.
I love
Yeah,
that you
this
said
is
the
like
word
Porygon,
ichor.
you know?
Yeah. Yes, yeah, it is totally a Porygon moment. It was not dissimilar from when Bailey's comet flew by Earth
Yeah.
or Abigail's front yard because the light kind of overtook the entire planet. But it was a really similar miracle to Bailey's comet.
What I'll say to that, Azzy, I totally feel the instinct to want to see biblically accurate Jughead. However, this is a situation where I think they could never do it well. It's a canonically imperceptible thing. So I'm creatively, I'm okay with choosing not to show it. But at a practical level, they have limited budgets. And I am so happy that instead of spending the money on the CGI for biblically accurate Jughead, they instead spent it on the sword fight between the Spear of Longinus wielding Tabitha Tate and a Confederate solder.
I'm from the
90s.
I just feel like if this show was made, you know, maybe 20, maybe 30 years ago, we would have gotten a great Stan Winston monster.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you just see whoever would have played Jughead in the late 90s, and it's just like him, like in a weird, like, it looks like the Thing, you know, the dog and the Thing, like, and he's just like, he's got like fake teeth in his mouth. He's like, just you know, I love Stan Winston. Like, so excited we were bringing to Riverdale. You know, like just like in the behind the scenes of like some VHS promo that was like on like ABC's World of
Thanks for
you know,
coming by,
Disney.
Sam.
Yeah,
yeah. I think if you were, and we can put this up on our Instagram just to make life easier for you folks and like make life harder for Azzy. I think that if you were to see the biblically accurate Jughead, it would be the giant bat that Val Kilmer interacts with in the Batman movies, where like that scene was cut out. Do you know what I'm talking about, Steven? The giant animatronic bat.
Yeah. Because they have it a little bit in the movie, right? Like there's some point where there's like in shadow.
It's like a tease of it,
Yes,
but you see in the deleted scene, you see full bat face of like, you know who killed your father, Val Kilmer?
Oh, jeez.
Honestly, you give this dude like a saxophone and he'd fit right into Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, biblically accurate angel. Yeah.
Okay, we have to continue moving forward in the episode. We have so much to get through. Now it is
so
time
much.
for a weekly. This is a weekly segment we do here, Steven. It's just a little mini game we play where I'm going to read you one line from a Martin Luther King Jr. speech, and you're going to tell me what date he originally gave that speech. Okay?
Oh, jeez. All right, I'll try my best.
I wish I'd actually written down the line he reads. That was such a funny moment to me. Like Tabitha, it's not out of the realm of possibility for the character as she's established to be able to hear one sentence and immediately go, "That's Martin Luther King's mountaintop speech," which means it's April 3rd, 1968, which means tomorrow is the day he. Like she teaches, what does she teach? She teaches like social justice at the high school.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
So she really could conceivably know the exact date of a given speech.
I was on the debate team.
And she was on the debate
That's right,
team.
which we found out later. And she debated if she would kill Hitler or not.
Yeah, that was her favorite philosophical question, which, as someone who studied philosophy in undergrad, that's all we ever talked about.
Really?
If you could go back in time, would you kill Hitler? That's like every class I took.
Yeah, that was Hegel, right?
Yeah,
if
it was.
I'm not mistaken.
It was, yeah.
The reason she knows this, in case you are not watching the episodes with us, it's because who seems he just broke out of the asylum, police chief, still in a jacket, runs in with a gun, and shoots at Tabitha, closes her eyes, boom. She's now listening to MLK. Quick question before we do focus on the the limitations of time travel in this show, and I know we are running out of time ourselves, but if there is the presence of the devil, do angel powers beat devil powers?
Yeah,
maybe this isn't important.
But isn't technically Lucifer a fallen angel? So isn't that why God is more powerful than the devil? Because technically,
So wouldn't he be immune to
middle
Raphael
manager
stuff? Because he's like same bestie.
But Percival Pickens isn't the devil.
Okay, my bad. Don't worry about it. That's a good point. Okay, you're right. These are limited powers. It is just
these are limited powers.
Yeah.
It is Percival Pickens though, because when he comes out of the asylum, he has his British accent back, and he yells, "You won't beat me, so stop trying."
Oh, yeah. Okay. Wait, that's crazy. Okay, anyway. All right, we don't have time for this.
Well, it's interesting because it's like one of those things. And it's always, I was watching Irish Wish, the Lindsay Lohan new movie and it's always these things where people swap bodies or swap through time. And it always takes the main character way too long to, even though they like wanted to go back in time or made a wish or whatever. I do appreciate
an Irish Wish.
I do appreciate that in this show, Tabitha's character is like, name tag, looks at the newspaper, got it. I'm in 1944. Like,
Tabitha kicks ass. Like, I really want to be clear about my stance on this.
It was so refreshing to see a character immediately understand what's going on and feel empowered to actually do something about what.
This was a Doctor Who episode with no doctor. Also, it's not Doctor Who, and Tabitha's not a companion, and she still figures it out from like square one. She's like, okay, got it. Yeah,
going to go stop the assassination of Martin Luther King.
Yeah, which unfortunately for her is a fixed point in time.
Yes,
always those fixed points in time.
That sucks, right?
Yeah, that sucks. But fortunately for her, she is able, through a series of connections with the operator switchboard, to reach the office of FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. And
are there any Hoover heads in the house right now? Anyone here who is like, God damn, that was a great impersonation? Yeah, real. Like, he's like a special interest?
Nope.
No?
No
one burning J's?
I was at least appreciative that they weren't going to make some tacky or tasteless like cross-dressing joke or something. You know what I mean?
I was afraid it was going to be like, when I first watched it, I was like, secret files. Oh no, is this like a sex is like is there shaming him for being gay?
I don't know about this.
Yeah, like it was just one of those things where this episode obviously has this very like, we're going to do a very specific portion of like American Black history and all that stuff, and then like take that with a lot of consideration and weight, and then just sort of make a, like, you know, again, it's like you never know with this kind of stuff where they can be so thoughtful in one section.
It's very
and then
queer positive, this show.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was my sense watching it overall, even though there wasn't anything specific. But yeah, I was like, oh, thank God, like they didn't do anything like that.
For reference, Omar, J. Edgar Hoover was actually blackmailed with pictures that would have suggested or proven his queerness.
No way, seriously? I didn't know this.
See, we're even educating you here in this episode.
Look at this. This is the power of Tabitha Tate.
The power of Tabitha Tate.
Single-handedly teaching me about this.
She knows so much, and yet she still went to the FBI office to try to stop the assassination of Martin Luther King, which I don't know if that's who I would go to personally.
I also, another comment from a friend of the podcast, my roommate, was just like, oh yeah, so you can just walk in, huh? And then I had to pause and be like, there have actually been several serial killers who have just strolled into the FBI office.
Wait, is the FBI office actually part of the plot of Riverdale?
Oh yeah, Betty Cooper
constantly.
Betty Cooper's very important FBI agent and serial
Oh
killer
wow,
hunter.
so they're really Twin Peaksing it up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Agent Cooper.
Okay, so
and she loves pie.
Tabitha does a lot to try to promote peaceful protest. It's I have mixed feelings about the politics of it, but she is right. She probably did protect all those people from being murdered by the FBI.
In this specific instance, where there was representatives from the 5 guilds of the 60s minority movements, I appreciate.
It was cool when we got an actual depiction of the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
In Riverdale Season 6 on the CW.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, we all knew it was a matter of time. They'd already referenced the Black Panthers earlier.
They had.
Yeah.
Tony and Fangs are talking about turning their street gang, the Serpents, into a more legitimate social institution like the Black Panthers that provides free breakfast and education programs to the community.
Was that Tony or was that the Angel Raphael? It's hard for me to keep track of these
In that case, it was Tony, but the Tony we see by the bus was Raphael.
It was like, you can't save Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
Which, again, I'm going on record as saying that sucks.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Would you, man, okay, so this time the FBI agent just drives by. I thought genuinely scary moment just actually drives by.
Yeah.
And is like slowly cruising. And I was like, okay, thank God. And then unfortunately, though, later that night, Tabitha finds a bomb in the back of the diner.
A cartoon alarm clock bomb.
Would you have said two questions I want to throw out to the table. One is, would you have done anything else with your time in this time period, considering that you were there and you could tell many representatives of many different minority organizations about the future?
No, I think that would about cover it.
I mean, it's like, where do you start? It's also, but also if you're like, I could travel to any point in time, wouldn't you just go to a better time to do stuff? You're like, I could do stuff in this time right now, or I could step on a bunch of baby dinosaurs and somehow really just sort of like impact the future in a weird way. I guess
my second question then is, when the FBI agent drives by and you do not repeat the incidents that lead to your time travel, would you suddenly have the fear of, wait, I'm stuck?
True. I mean, yeah, the fact that, again, it's like Tabitha, though, is such a twist on this formula where it's like, yeah, you know that you're already back in time, so at this point you're way more empowered to do things. And so I guess at that point you're like, well, I already know every time I time travel it's under an intense getting shot or type of trauma. But also you're like, but that's like one bullet, it hits you. It's like, how is like the most cartoonishly Acme looking bomb gonna actually send me back in time, or is that just gonna blow me into smithereens and I'm gonna show up in another time as like a bunch of pieces?
I would say the one thing I wouldn't do with my time would be, once I find the bomb, take it outside of my family diner, put it in a trash can to contain the blast. I definitely would not walk any further away from the bomb.
Yeah. I don't think she had time. It blew up immediately. Kind of stands there and closes her eyes. Yeah.
Was that like was the trash can made of the same like lead that palladium? The refrigerator that was some of the same palladium that the refrigerator that kept Indiana Jones alive in Indiana Jones 4 was made out of, perhaps?
No, because Tabitha died. Or she got blown. She got blown to 1999.
That had to, which same.
But wait, but also, wouldn't that have blown up the diner?
Right?
No, y'all, you don't. You're overthinking this, Steven. I thought we'd already established that Riverdale has evolved beyond the need for logical storytelling.
Yes, I mean, again, the moment where it was just like, oh, okay, was also when it's like, yeah, you're in a hospital right now, and it's like, oh, it's not even going to go to the end of the episode and she wakes up in the hospital and it's been all a dream or something. It's like, or
I think it was a mistake to have her in the hospital from like just being really nitpicky about the time magic system. I don't think she should have been in the hospital.
I think it should have just been nothing, right? Like, you shouldn't have
she should have physically moved in time.
Yeah.
That's my take on it, but
I agree.
It's unclear.
But we are now in the familiar the most familiar decade to some of us.
Mhm.
Azzy, did this seem like a foreign time to you? Were you like confused by this?
Not necessarily. I've seen enough depictions in television and movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Azzy, what year were you born?
2003.
Okay.
Oh,
Wow, after NSYNC's Dirty Pop.
So we're getting like this show is so interesting because the people in the writers' room. I know the show is insane and dumb, but also I think the people in the writers' room are actually like smart and interesting and interested people. Like the choice of 88 SS as the graffiti. That's really specific, and that's someone who like pays attention to white nationalism.
An honest depiction of dog whistles.
Yeah.
And
are y'all familiar with 88?
Yes. I could be. I'm not familiar in terms of like I participate, but like I could know more.
So 88,
not in a participatory way.
That's interesting. I would have thought you were more actively involved in the 88 scene.
I'm so sorry. I'm honestly
88
so lazy these days.
88 is one of many white nationalist codes, as Pop said, used, and it stands for 8. The 8th letter in the alphabet is H. So 88 is HH, which is short for Heil Hitler. And it's a way that neo-Nazis would secretly communicate their allegiance to each other. You have like an 88 patch, or you have 88 in your username or something.
As someone whose birth year that was, that sucks. That also sucks.
That does suck. I'm sorry.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, this is something that I've noticed is kind of in that vein very infuriating. And I think as you bring up, it's like, or just like that idea of like acknowledging a specific dog whistle where, I was like speaking of Pacific Northwest, I was up there visiting family, and there's a country radio station where they're saying real country. And you're like, oh, I know what they're saying.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. And you're like, fuck you. Like, but they're saying it in this way where it's like, oh, we're just talking about real country. And I'm like, go fuck yourself. Like, they're only saying this because obviously Cowboy Carter came out, and you're like, there wouldn't be country music without black people.
I mean, Steven,
like you get so mad. I'm like so mad because it is that, and that is probably a thing that a lot of people don't know, where there's these specific dog whistles and things that.
Shout out to my former law school professor, Ian Haney Lopez, writer of the book Dog Whistle Politics. If you want to go check that out. But he did a lot to popularize the term. I think it's useful for people to pay attention, and I'm thankful to Riverdale for spreading that knowledge. And Steven, I know you're mad about it in reality, not the Riverdale stuff. And I agree. It sucks that there are just some men whose hearts are so cold they burn down villages just for the warmth.
Oh, that was a great line. Honestly,
that's a good line.
That's a great line.
Shout out to Betty Raphael.
There's a Betty Raphael.
I can't wait to get to.
For sure, new DJ name.
Yeah, Betty Raphael.
Lily Reinhart. I just want to stop and acknowledge what an incredible actor. And everyone in this show is very, very good. But just in this episode, Betty popping up and being like, "Yeah, you're catching on." I'm just like getting those sides and being like, "Okay, cool. I'm Raphael, the angel, and I'm a guardian angel," and I'm just like, "Okay, cool. We're like on the same like path. Like you're good. You're almost there." Being like the third lap, take on a character, absolutely amazing.
She kills it.
Truly incredible work. Yeah.
So
and then we get a really 90s fight in a curiosity.
So it's a very Buffy kind of fight.
So we find out that Percival has opened up a sort of a curiosity shop. What's that Stephen King story? The whatever.
Cujo?
Is it Stephen King? Maybe it's not Stephen King.
The Chaser? The one where it's like you can have this thing for free, but you're gonna worry about it later.
It's a very monkey's paw kind of thing.
It's very monkey's paw, but no, there's like a movie about Needful Things. No, not Needful Things. That's the Rick and Morty episode based on it. No, it is. Okay. There is a Rick and Morty episode based on it, but it's a Stephen King novel called Needful Things that's about like the devil's curiosity shop. That operates very similarly. But we find out that the teenage boy who'd been spray painting Nazi propaganda on the wall of Pops wasn't actually a Nazi. It's 1999, so 4chan's not around yet. But he had been hypnotized by Percival Pickens in exchange for a baseball card.
Which I think that's, to me, is such a weird, creepy thing to get at a curio store.
You know what I mean? If it was 1999, they should have had it be Charizard, first edition.
Oh,
So
that would have been
true,
huge.
so true.
That's when the base set came out.
That's the
You
base
know?
That
set.
hit too, yeah.
Well,
Did that hit too close to home,
1998.
Sarah?
1998 is when I turned 6. I'm 31. And what I
Congratulations.
got for my 6th birthday in 1998 was the album To Be a Master, which is all the Pokemon
Master.
hits. What a good song.
Yeah.
Game on Master.
That was the only I had two. Okay, tangent within a tangent. When I got a car in high school, it only had a CD player, and I only had 2 CDs: Pokemon To Be a Master and Bat Boy the Musical, the original cast recording.
Yes.
I still know most of the words to all the songs on To Be a Master, but great music. Anyway,
Wow, I haven't thought about that in so long. I remember mine had on the jewel case, I had the Pokemon Snap stickers that I printed out from Blockbuster.
Pokemon
Hell
Snap is my
yes.
fucking favorite game.
Have you played the new one?
No, sacrilege.
I haven't played it either. I haven't, but I haven't had the heart to play it yet as well.
So good.
I feel you, Sarah.
I can't play the new one because I don't know all the new Pokemon, and so emotionally it doesn't do anything for me.
You could learn the new Pokemon if you wanted.
No, I'm trying to really... Pokemon Snap for me is a chance to retreat into the comforting nostalgia of childhood when things were simple.
When you're throwing apples at Pokemon, and Pikachu's like, stop fucking throwing shit at me.
I'm with you, Sarah. I wouldn't know what's a Pokemon and what's not. So I'd be like, this fence Pokemon? And I'd take a picture and they'd be like, why would you think that? And then they'd be like, why didn't you take a picture of that pile of trash? That is a new Pokemon. And I'd be like,
a set of keys. Come on.
Yeah, new Pokemon don't make any sense. The old Pokemon designs all make incredible amounts of sense, like Magnemite, who's a ball with 2 magnets floating next to it. Or Muck, who's just a pile of goo. Like, those are good designs.
Yeah, those make
Sensible.
sense.
I take such umbrage with this. I love Pokemon.
I do too.
Not to necessarily derail, but like it's crazy that this curiosity shop in Riverdale has the spear, right? Am I alone in thinking that? Like that's a huge get.
I think it has. Okay,
You mean other than the Holy Grail?
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
you're right. Sorry. There's actually 2 things that are kind of wild that are in there.
The rules of the shop aren't explained in this episode, but if it follows the logic of similar stores and other media, I think you walk into the shop and you find whatever you're looking for. Like, that's why that kid who is obsessed with Riverdale's one professional baseball player finds that card.
Okay.
Yeah, it shows you what you desire most or what you're fascinated by.
And Tabitha needed the Spear of Longinus. Yeah, she needed the Spear of Longinus to fight Confederate Pickens.
In full 1990s regalia.
Which is when,
like as if he was out of a TLC music video, just trolling out.
We get our other really good line of the episode.
Yeah, please
where
do the honors, Azzy.
Tabitha goes, like, what are you, or who are you? And Percival goes, my names are Legion, but blow out the candle and I am the dark.
Yeah.
And it is immediately ruined by a like SpongeBob SquarePants-esque scary face that pops up for 2 seconds.
That was wild. That was like genuinely a what the fuck. I mean, in a show of what the fuck moments. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it was...
Steven, you won't recognize that face.
Maybe,
but Azzy, you should recognize it.
How in the world should I recognize that face?
Because that face features prominently in episode 3.
Yeah.
Oh, is it Louis Cypher?
It's the face of fear that Lou Cypher reveals to various members of the town.
Okay.
Wait, I want to watch episode 3. This sounds fascinating. So far,
Episode 3
featuring Mr. Cypher, Mr. Lou Cypher.
If you want to watch a beautiful story of immortal lesbian witch love, then you should watch episode 4.
Oh my gosh, I'm
and
writing all
knowing
this
Steven,
down.
Steven does.
Yeah.
I know. I was gonna say, just like on my desk right now, I have my favorite Jurassic couple from Camp Cretaceous, Sammy and Yaz.
Oh yeah.
Who's Yaz is played by a friend of Omar's, Qasr Mohammed.
Yeah, shout out to Qasr.
my favorite couple in the Jurassic franchise right now. But so yes, I'm here for all sapphic sci-fi fantasy romance.
Yeah, what does Finn Fogarty call him? A saucy sapphic
Saucy sapphic wench.
Saucy sapphic wench.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go off, girl.
I thought the line you were going to say, Azzy, was, a lot of people don't know this, but in college, I was on the varsity fencing team.
Fuck me.
Yes. Yes.
Thrown in there to explain why she was so good at wielding the spear of Longinus to duel Confederate pickings in the curio shop.
You know,
Tabitha, lead with that. Tabitha, lead with that next time.
You know, in an era where, you know, we are friends with people online, become friends with them IRL or vice versa, or, you know, we're kind of navigating, constantly learning things about people we know. I honestly feel like random little lore dumps like that are actually very accurate to friendships nowadays, or, you know what I mean? So it makes sense. You're like, because occasionally, like, I mean, again, I've known Omar for over 15 years now or whatever, but like, there's a lot of people where it's like, I'll just be like, oh yeah, I studied abroad in New Zealand, and everyone, and people who I've known just in LA or something are like, wait, what the fuck? Like, when did that happen?
Omar, we've been working on a podcast together for 11 episodes now. Did you know that my first job out of college was working for an art collective in Shanghai?
No, I didn't know that.
Let's move on. So she drinks a Holy Grail milkshake, and
fucking the milkshake. The milkshake made me lose my mind. Again, this was at this point 5 a.m.
Oh my god!
I will say kudos to Riverdale though for making the Holy Grail just a simple wooden cup.
Yeah, that was cool. That was like,
cool. I always hate when the Holy Grail is like some elaborate gold filigreed thing, because I'm like, the dude was a carpenter with no money.
Why would Jesus be drinking out of that?
I like that we've gone the Indiana Jones, the Raiders of the Lost Ark route for so much, where it is weird when like after that, how do you make the Holy Grail bedazzle? How do you bedazzle the Holy Grail after Raiders of the Lost Ark?
This did look like a I will say this did look like almost like a base form of like every tiki mug. Like every tiki mug starts this way and then gets like put on.
Yeah. You buy a tiki mug, you shave off the relief, and you have a Holy Grail.
Exactly. Oh. That's how it happens, folks.
We're now back to just before she initially got shot. My only note that I have recorded for that scene is, "Get souped, bitch."
Yeah. Again,
it's this thing of like, I almost again went like at some point in this show I was like, do I hate all forms of fiction? And then by the end of the show I'm just like, yes, if you were in this position you would immediately know to throw that can of soup.
Yeah,
this is my destiny.
I would have thrown the grilled cheese sandwich and things would have happened exactly the same in an infinite loop. That was wild. I do love her like mercy she offers, where she's like, he's probably under my control. I think that was nice.
I mean, and she's probably right.
Yeah.
But then we find out that she's gathered the super kids in Pops.
Yeah,
and she's telling them about all this.
Dan Lippert.
Shout out to Dan Lippert. Dan Lippert's prediction coming true officially.
Yeah, Dan Lippert's only batted 100 so far.
Yep.
The Archvengers.
Exactly.
The Avengies?
The Avengies?
I love all of these. And we find out that her talisman actually wasn't a Holy Grail milkshake.
What?
No. It was, in fact, Pops. It's been Pops the whole time.
That's a huge totem, y'all.
What a big totem.
Building.
Big old...
She can't bring it with her. It's really inconvenient for time travel. But
did they, Azzy, do you remember this in your delirium? Do they still have the Grail?
No, I don't think so. I think the Grail was left in the time period that it was.
I think as of now, she can't bring anything with her between times.
Okay.
So
that's
the Holy
fine.
Grail
it's just like,
it's in the box of memorabilia.
Sitting there.
Oh, yeah.
Is it in the box of memorabilia?
Or they threw it away because no one else knew what it was. Who put a milkshake in this weird wooden cup?
If the Holy Grail is in Pop Tate's box of memorabilia, this might be my end of the podcast. You might never hear from me again.
honestly though, after you put a milkshake and then it's left in a box for 50 years, like you're not reusing that. I've got some tiki from the Isla Nublar at Universal that, like, you know, they were left in my car a little bit too long, so now when I wash them, if you're going to use
wooden dishware, you really got to make sure it's sealed. You know, like Jesus wasn't putting epoxy on that bitch. He would have been sealing it with olive oil. And we did not see Tabitha reseal it because that's a time-consuming process.
Yeah, she's got to rebuff that thing and everything.
They were in quite a bit of a rush at that time.
Yeah.
In Jesus's life.
But to quote Jughead, it does make sense.
Okay. Would you agree, Steven?
Makes perfect sense. Great. It's all logical, everything
including, of course, the future that Tabitha visits, in which the sky is full of ash and Riverdale is just gone.
But I will say this, Pop's still there.
Pop's still there. Well, the frame of Pop's is still there.
Oh, maybe that just got turned into a train station like the groundworks in NoHo.
Yeah. Oh my
god. Yeah, and that kind of wraps up the episode. I would like to just offer, this is, you know, I want to be very transparent with our listeners. I will at times and in the past have said things that like are not the greatest, most perfect gleaming things that one could say, and that's because I'm a human. I am full of fallibility, and while watching the episode, I want to highlight another moment that I was fallible, where I went, chronokinetic, I think you mean chronomancy. And I said it 7 times, and then I finally looked it up and I went, no, that doesn't make sense. Chronokinetic was correct.
Because chronomancy would be controlling like the time experienced by others or around you or something.
And the perception, because it's like like mancy is the divination.
Like magic.
No, but like hemomancy though is used to describe people who have like bloodbending powers.
Oh, in that case, I was correct. I'm a god. I'm infallible. I can't believe.
or necromancy, like
necromancy isn't like I can think to the dead. You're right. It's controlling them.
Mm-hmm. Let's look up necromancy etymology real quick.
Okay, here we go.
This is a good tangent.
Mm-hmm. Right at the end.
I was about to say that, like, out of maybe since the first episode, this is the first episode that has maybe discussed the full episode of Riverdale that we're talking about.
Well, we had to. I think this is going to end up being a longer episode of the pod, but there's so much to get through. And
that's good. That's fine.
Yeah, we'll even out. The next guest will get theirs shaved by 30 minutes.
No, you can't do that to somebody. You can't show them an episode of this show.
We have to operate on our averages. Sorry.
It gives me the opportunity to ask Steven if you had to assign the Archangel Raphael a dinosaur.
Yes.
Ooh. I mean, I feel like maybe a flying reptile would be cheating, like a Quetzalcoatlus or something like that. But well, I mean, but I think
for the wings, you mean?
Yeah, for the wings. But I don't know. I mean, you could really have a raptor be an angel because there's that kind of cunning, smart, perceptive.
Raptor, maybe, Steven?
Oh, no.
I love that.
New comic book hitting shelves soon.
You know,
Raptor.
I'm not just saying this because it's my favorite dinosaur. But what you're saying is making me think maybe Trudon is the way we should be going.
I was literally just about to say that, so thank you. The Trudon, because they were like, and I thought it was an episode of Eyewitness, Eyewitness books as the TV show. I'm gonna walk down the aisle to that song. Like,
yes,
but
there are so many covers on YouTube. We don't have to get into this,
but yes, no, I just literally showed my new partner Abby. I showed her all of them, But I thought this was the Dinosaurs Eyewitness episode, but there is some childhood TV thing where it shows like, what if dinosaurs kept living, and it was human-looking Trudon. It was like if a Trudon evolved into a human, more of a human.
I remember that. Fuck.
Yes, I can't remember where it's from, but I started with Eyewitness. I think if you start there, then maybe the rabbit hole will lead you.
And since Sarah brought it up, I wasn't gonna do this to us, but it's already happened. What's everybody's favorite dinosaur?
Trudon. Well, I already said.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is yours, Omar?
Dilophosaurus.
Ugh, classic. Camp, perfectly
in fact,
camp.
hold up. I mean, this is not good podcasting, but I've got one right here.
Yeah.
Have I shown you this, Steven? I've got the Nedry Jeep I made in the Legos. Yeah, this is not good podcasting.
No, everyone wants to hear us talk about Lego. No, I mean, my favorite dinosaur... Wait, when is this coming out?
That's a great question.
This will probably be coming out in August.
Oh, great. Well, then I can say, because in June of this year, my friend Andrea Ciofalo Andrea Ciofalo, Strange Bird Art, she's an excellent oil painter. We told stories telling each other about our favorite dinosaurs in June. So you can go back and listen to hear an entire episode of me talk about the Shunosaurus, which is, it's the shortest long lady. It's a sauropod that has an ankylosaurus club tail. So imagine Littlefoot with a club tail that can fuck you up.
Hell yes.
So that's my favorite dinosaur.
Love a good tail. Love a good utilitarian tail.
Exactly. Like, again, Littlefoot, but with a weapon strapped.
Yeah.
She's Littlefoot staying strapped,
What about you, Azzy? Did you share your favorite?
Yeah. I haven't, but mine is a Pachycephalosaurus. Easy. It has been for a very long time. Big shout out to Pachycephalosaurus. I'm considering getting one tattooed.
Ooh. love the one with the bald spot. Packy.
Elvis.
Sorry.
Are you gonna go to like Madrid or somewhere fancy to get that tattoo?
No.
Okay, here's where you might have seen it. There was a 1985 book called The Illustrated Encyclopedia of Dinosaurs that included Dale A. Russell, the curator of vertebrate fossil at National Museum of Canada. His conjectured evolutionary path of troodontids evolving into a race of hominids he called dinosauroids.
Holy smokes.
And there's awesome statue of a dinosauroid that I will put up on our Instagram when this episode comes out.
Yes.
I can picture it. It's haunted me ever since I was a child.
So that Jurassic Park sequel script that floated around for years about like the half human, half dinosaurs is not like that's not a wild thing. That's like science.
That's science. As far as I'm understanding this Wikipedia article.
That's science.
Can I did y'all see the mid-2000s special hosted by Mo Rocca, The Future is Wild? It projected
I do love Mo Rocca.
It projected the next 200 million years of evolution.
No.
Oh, I do remember this. I have no I'm picturing Mo Rocca, but that's it.
No spoilers, but after all the land animals die and the squids reclaim the earth and diverge into two separate species, the elephantine mega squids and then the very monkey-like branch swinging squibbins. Things get pretty good.
Wow, that's another rabbit hole for this weekend.
Thank
Look,
God.
I could be watching The Acolyte early, or I could be watching Mo Rocca's The Future is Wild.
480p, just fucking stolen.
Is there like a West Side Story-esque love affair that could happen to try to unite the two squid families?
No, because the mega squids are not that smart, and they eat squibbins, and the squibbins are the first animals since the death of primates to rediscover the usage of tools.
Okay.
And they hunt the mega squids.
So, second follow-up question: does Mo Rocca have a bunch of like "wait, don't tell me"-esque like bits?
Oh yeah, Mo Rocca crushes it. Honestly, some of his finest work.
Should we ink this deal? Yeah.
Should we reach out to Mo Rocca to see if he wants to be on this pod?
100%. We need to reach out. We need to reach out to Mo Rocca and say, "Listen, bud, we haven't heard from you in a while. Would you care to be on our podcast?"
Is there like a squid-based episode of Riverdale during season 6?
Ooh, now it's not.
Coming up.
We're not watching Watchmen here.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We're not learning about history through the show Watchmen. Okay, we're learning about history through the show Riverdale Season 6.
You're correct,
Steven. It's unfortunately time does catch up to all of us since we are not.
We're not
chronokinetic.
We're not chronokinetic.
But we are not letting you go without a couple awards. I assure you, my friend. And these are awards you get to give out. We've got a couple that we're going to need you to assign. The first is as described and ideated by our first guest, Oscar Montoya. This is called the Sin Pie Award. It is who ate the slice of sin pie and left no crumbs, who crushed every single scene they were in. Previous awardees have been members of the core cast, side characters, as well as animals and concepts, and also everyday objects. What for you wins the Sin Pie Award?
And don't think too hard, because we want to embody the spirit of the Riverdale Writers Room.
No, of course.
First idea, best idea.
First idea, best idea.
We're going with the star of the episode, Erin Westbrook. She crushed it. I mean, again, having to handle all these heavy themes, all that stuff, make it seem fun, exciting, thrilling. We're learning 1 second, next second we're like, what the heck's going on? She's standing up for what's right. She is a character who, in again, most media would take either half a movie or at least the first act to figure out, I really am back in time, or I really have switched a body. She's like, no, we're here. Here's the date. Here's my name tag. Got it.
Efficient.
And so I would like to give her that award.
Yeah, I'm going to throw an honorary mention to Spear of Longinus. You'll get him next time, buddy.
The second really nailed those clothes, Spear.
The second award
to go down a
out.
Rabbit hole. I'm about to go down the rabbit hole of Spirit of Longinus.
I was just reading about the Spear of Longinus last week.
The Spear of Longinus was brought up in episode 3 by Ross Bryant.
Oh yeah, that's
Holy
right.
Holy smokes!
And speaking of Ross Bryant, it's time for the Ross Bryant Notice Me Senpai Award. Which of these senpais in this episode would you most like to notice you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Can I put Martin Luther King?
Sure. Yeah. Martin Luther King Jr.'s father? Sure.
It was almost just like...
Yeah, you're big into Martin Luther King Sr.?
It just was like, are we actually going there? And we didn't. So it was almost like that maybe is the only moment where I'm like, I kind of wish we would have gone there. At least
Martin Luther King playing hard to get.
Yeah.
Or maybe he didn't play hard enough to get.
True.
Whoa.
Yeah. Because he got
poor
shot.
Bus driver did not realize what history he was presenting.
I know, right?
We're just they'll come back in a couple of hours.
Only bus to Memphis, ma'am.
Oh my God!
I don't know what to do.
Rat Trap. Third award.
Rat Trap's back.
The third award is the Britannia Award.
Mm-hmm.
You did not meet the character Britannia. But this award,
unfortunately,
this award is actually given to the moment that most made you look at the TV or perhaps around you and say, "What?"
I mean, the Christmas episode.
Same for me, honestly. The drop that it was Christmas Eve.
Like, it almost felt like it was a trick because there wasn't anything else going on in that moment that made you maybe there was when she looked at the calendar. Or when she looked at the newspaper, it said December 1944, but it just was like all of a sudden the diner was covered in Christmas lights. And you're like, where the hell did...
they played a trick on you.
It was a jump scare that it was Christmas.
Does your town not often have town hall meetings where you propose major changes to policy on December 24th?
I mean, I did have jury duty over Christmas Eve. Wow. Or like they were gonna do jury duty. It was like, basically it was like that time, and then like, we'll just figure it out in the new year.
Yeah, we'll postpone it to May 2024. You could have been on the Trump trial.
Oh
no. And finally, we have one last award. Keep in mind, this isn't really an award, but we call it the Dan Lippert Prediction Award. Do you have any predictions for the rest of this season, Steven? Doesn't have to be the whole season. Could just be one storyline, one idea, an image, a sensation.
Yeah, what's gonna happen?
Wondering, is Percival, I think Chris O'Shea is the actor's name. Like, is he the big bad, or is there going to be? My prediction is that there's going to be another, like,
a Thanos,
an even bigger bad.
That's my prediction. I like that prediction. Are you going to go watch Riverdale Season 6?
I kind of want to.
You
like
should.
again, it's like
Yes, you're the first guest who said that.
That's not true. That's not true.
I definitely want to watch episodes 3 and 4 based on
Yeah.
our conversation today. Like those.
Well, that's not Riverdale. That's Rivervale. Would you want to see Riverdale episodes?
I mean, I do want to see more of Tabitha. I do like the character.
Steven, what if people want to see more of you? Where would they find you?
Well, they can at least listen because people want video podcasts. Okay. Anyway,
we're not doing a video podcast.
No. I mean, again, I love seeing the people I'm talking to, so I like that aspect of it. But
or you know what? It'll be unrelated video content we can get our hands on. We're gonna license unrelated video content.
Yeah,
it's like a karaoke.
It's one of those visualizers.
Yeah. It's salmon fishing. Just throwing salmon through the salmon tube. Yeah, Steven, where can people listen to?
See Jurassic Right is my Jurassic Park movies, science, and anything else that keeps you curious as an adult podcast. And you can listen to that. And then Keanan and Lakin Give You Deja Vu is a step-by-step rewatch podcast hosted by Christine Lakin, who played Al, and Stacey Keanan, who played Dana Foster, Al Lambert and Dana Foster on the show. And so it's a very exciting show because it's two people who are actually there, you know, who are acting in it every week. And Stacey never watched the show growing up, so it's like weirdly somebody took a bunch of pictures of her childhood and are now showing it back to her. So that's been a really, I think, fascinating thing about the show, and it's really fun. And yeah, just if you like 90s nostalgia, it's a lot of looking at, you know, there's an episode where Patrick Duffy is like, a computer, you know, like that kind of stuff. It's really fun. And yeah, it's just exciting to look back at the 90s and just look at the shows that were being made and being like, you know, it's like Riverdale. You're just like, okay, here's an episode where aliens exist all of a sudden and are just never addressed again.
It's like Riverdale is gonna be merch. I'm insistent upon this.
you see the lineage of all that, but yeah, it's just, you know, I just like hearing people tell stories about the 90s. So it's a really fun podcast to produce and edit and engineer and all that stuff. But
I love that.
Yeah, Stephen Ray Morris and all the things. It's pretty straightforward. So thank you guys so much. This has been
so much.
This is we're recording on a Friday, and I'm like, how am I going to go about the rest of my day now after watching this show?
So everything has changed.
So thank you for that. Yeah, it's before Riverdale and after Riverdale, I think.
Yeah, that's how we feel here. Azzy, where can people find you?
You can go find me on Instagram at I Need Azrael, Azrael. You can go follow the podcast, this wonderful podcast, at Riverdale 6 Pod on Instagram, and you can go find our other stuff through there. There will be links there.
Yeah.
And also all the things that we always mention that we're going to post.
Yeah. This is August when it's releasing this. We're recording it at the end of May here, so that has given Azzy plenty of time to thoroughly research dinosauroids.
Yes.
So she'll
That's
be posting
why
a lot
there's
of
an
info.
hour and a half long documentary of me sitting in my room talking about dinosauroids.
That's bonus Patreon content.
Is there enough time to take the Ally McBeal baby and do like a dinosaur version of that? Maybe a T-Rex, tiny T-Rex Azzy, like a tiny T-Rex Ally McBeal baby.
On that note, as an idea popped into my head 3 minutes ago. There's an improv show that happens at UCB every now and again called Gravid Water, where the joke is one person in the scene is a trained actor who's reciting lines from a script and they can't diverge from their lines. The other person in the scene is an improviser who does not know what they're in, doing their best to make the scene make sense. But I'm kind of like, what if we just pitched a show at UCB where everyone is cold reading a script for an episode of Riverdale?
Yes, 100%.
No improv. They're all improvisers or actors. They don't have to improv anything.
That's actually really great. I love that idea.
I would love also if they were well versed. This is like I think that UCB really does need to bring back Readers Theater. It's really important.
Sorry, that's a divergence. But for more divergence and things like that, you can find me on Instagram at Sarah Rose Kaplan. Sarah no H Rose like the flower Kaplan with a C. And you can find out about all my improv shows, which, who knows, by August might include a staged cold reading of a Riverdale episode.
And I'm Omar and Jam. You can find me at Omar and Jam Film on Instagram. Maybe when this episode comes out, I'll post a picture of my Lego Jeep set that I did from Jurassic Park.
Ooh.
Absolute blast. Can't wait to find out where the season is going. I mean, I know, and I can't wait for us to get there and watch Azzy's face as more and more details are revealed.
Oh my God.
Folks, this is great. Thank you so much, Steven, for joining us. We'll be back next week with an incredible guest. We're very, very excited about it. Do you want to tease anything, Sarah?
Well,
or are we just keeping
next week. Okay, so we're recording them a little out of order, but next week for you, listener, is going to be an incredible guest. It's going to be Amy Vorpal. So if you are D&D nerd, you probably know who she is, and I'm so excited to talk to her. But yes, there is someone who will be episode 14. We'll be talking about episode 14 with someone who may or may not be in episode 14.
Buckle up, you nerds. So without further ado, let's go ahead and sign off the podcast like we always do. Sarah, you want to take this one?
Sure, I got it. Bye.